Item 1, call to order. And I think I already did, but for the record, I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Board of Directors of September 18th, 2025. Martina, will you please call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum present?
Absolutely. Thank you, Director Hilliard. Starting with Bolinas Fire District, we do not yet have Director Molesworth with us for the afternoon. For Mill Valley, Director Jones. For the City of San Rafael, Director Kurtz.
Here.
For the City of Larkspur, Director Way.
Here.
For the County of Marin, Director Rodoni.
Present.
For Inverness, Director Donahue is not yet with us for the afternoon.
I'm substituting for Catherine Donahue.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Ken Emanuels.
And please let the minutes show that we have Ken Emanuels substituting this afternoon for Director Donahue for Inverness. For Kentfield, do we have Director Evergettis?
Present.
For Marin Wood, we do not yet have Director Shea this afternoon. For Muir Beach, do we have Director Murray?
Here.
For Novato, do we have Director Goins?
Here.
For Sleepy Hollow, do we have Director Finn? Doesn't look like Director Finn is just here this app just yet, but he will be here momentarily. For Stinson Beach Fire, do we have Director White?
Here.
For the town of Corte Madera, do we have Director Andrews?
Here.
For the town of Ross, Director McMillan is not yet with us for the afternoon. For the town of San Anselmo, we will not have Director Schlesinger with us this afternoon. For the town of Fairfax, do we have Director and Vice
Yes, I'm
President
here.
Director Kohler? Yes. And for Southern Marin Fire, do we have President and Director Catherine Hilliard?
Here.
And we do have a quorum for the afternoon. We will announce the directors arriving just a bit after the start of the meeting as they arrive.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item 3, agenda adjustments. Do board members or staff have any agenda adjustments for this agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the Board of Directors at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the board. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 2 minutes and should be respectful to the community. I just want to remind you to please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Do we have any people, any of the public wanting to speak at this time?
It looks like we do have a hand raised for a public comment in the remote audience. Just a moment, please. Oh, it looks like that hand is no longer up. There are no comments at this time in the online environment, but we do have a comment in the room.
Please come up, state your name and where you're from, and give us your comments.
Hi, my name is Tim Walterman, Corte Madera. I believe it's on. It's okay. I'm in Corte Madera. I'm commenting on item 7. So should I wait until that comes up to make my general comments?
We'll be able
Every time. Okay, thank you.
That will be great. Okay. Anyone else for general public expression?
There are no additional comments at this time.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Executive Officers Report. So our Executive Officer, Mark Brown, will provide the staff report on this item. Mark.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another Marin Wildfire Board of Directors meeting. And like I usually like to chat real quick about during fire season, even though it's year-round season nowadays, is a significant fire potential outlook. Again, this is based on averages. So based on what the fuels and weather data for Northern California for the month of September and for the month of October, our area should see the increased chance of significant fire potential. Then unfortunately getting into November, December, we start getting into average chances of significant fire potential. We've been seeing a fairly consistent but not an extreme fire occurrence within the state. It'll be interesting to see what happens in September, October, if we start getting into the offshore wind events, especially with the fuel conditions that we have now. And if you're watching the weather right now, we do have some subtropical moisture coming up through the state, which turns into lightning. So hopefully that doesn't turn into new ignitions. Moving on to the next item, staff has been working with staff members from all of our zones within our member agencies for Goal 4, which is our public and outreach measures of success. We've had one in-person meeting, likely have one more, and then that's when we will bring it back to meet with the ad hoc subcommittee that's been formed of the board of directors on Goal 4. And just so everyone knows who's going to be on that subcommittee, Directors Goins, McMillan, Schlesinger, Murray, Hilliard, and Molesworth will be the members that are on that Goal 4 ad hoc subcommittee.
Mark, we may have an addition or correction to that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then after we updated our Marin Wildfire Joint Powers Authority agreement, it brought it into a little bit of a disalignment with the bylaws. So it's time to bring the bylaws into the alignment with the JPA. So working with the board president, we have asked Directors Kurtz, Kohler, Donahue, Finn, and McMillan to be on the bylaw subcommittee. Megan and I will take the first deep dive into it. We'll reach out to some of the folks that we've been working with, and then we'll meet with the ad hoc subcommittee of the board and then bring it to the full board. We did have an opportunity to meet with the operations committee at an offsite meeting earlier this week. Since we are halfway through Marin Wildfire, it was an awesome opportunity to evaluate at the operations level where Marin Wildfire has been, and where we're going, and also to evaluate our relationship and how we continue to push out our public outreach and education in partnership with FireSafe Marin. More to come on that, and we'll keep the board informed while we do that. I'm just going to say a little bit about EmberStop, and then when Bill Tyler gives the update from FireSafe Marin, he'll give much more of the details about EmberStop. Very successful, though. By far, the most engagement that Marin Wildfire specifically has ever had. We had, in previous years, just one booth for Marin Wildfire. This year, we had 5 different booths, one for each goal. And anecdotally, I would say we had more people at each of the 5 booths engaging with our staff than we had in previous years at the one booth. I'll let Bill go on with the rest of it. But one observation I do want to share is in our vendors. I think we found that sweet spot with our vendors, because in years past, some of the vendors were aiming their products towards public safety and public safety entities, whereas this festival, the EmberStomp, is all about the public. And this year, I think we struck a much better balance with our vendors that were looking straight at the public rather than to the public safety members. Zone Zero in a Box, as you may remember, is a program that is being funded by the Marin Community Foundation. It's to help to give our residents the easy button in order to achieve Zone Zero. We've already launched and completed our recruitment. I'm happy to say Kathleen Cutter has accepted the position as the Senior Wildfire Mitigation Specialist to lead that effort. We've also offered the position to a grant specialist. They have accepted it, but I'll wait to announce the name until we make sure that we get through the background investigation. But we're on schedule to start putting out requests for proposals for the contractors that will work through that, and also the software upgrades that we'll need to support that. Speaking of Zone Zero in a Box, I had the opportunity to participate in a podcast with the economic architecture. That was one of those, my first meeting with economic architecture. I had no clue why they reached out to us. They reached out to us and said, hey, we want to talk to you. And when we got into that meeting, they literally said to me, you don't know why you're talking to us, do you? And I said, no, I don't. And they said, well, we're a nonprofit think tank in Washington, D.C., and we are looking at how industry reacts to and adapts to climate change and creates profit centers within climate change. And then I go, okay, so let me get this straight. So what you're thinking about is, in my world, we have a defensible space program. We go doing inspections and we let the residents know what they need to do. And then there's contractors that need to know how to do those things. They said, that's exactly what we're talking about. And I go, well, let me explain to you our Zone Zero in a Box concept. And that's what turned into a podcast with the Economic Architecture Zone Zero in a Box. So as part of my executive officer report that I'll send following this meeting, I'll send you a link. When you're bored and you need to fall asleep, and you have 30 minutes of time, you can listen to the Economic Architecture podcast. And then I'll close with what I closed with last month, and I think it's just worth reiterating. I want to talk about how Marin Wildfire operates. What we've been doing since we've been formed is that we tell our residents what we're going to do, we tell them why we're going to do it, and then we turn around and we do what we say. And with that, I'll stop my screen share, but I do ask for one more quick screen share so I can show my very favorite moment from Ember Stomp. And unfortunately, it's not popping up on me. Give me a couple seconds here. But my very favorite moment from Ember Stomp coming to you live. Some of you may figure out where I'm going with this. Thank you for indulging me.
Is that Chief Weber?
Yep.
For the record, we just saw Chief Weber go into the dunk tank. Okay, moving on. Okay, so are there, yes, sure.
Just want to say that we should recognize that Director Finn has been with us.
Thank you.
Amen.
And now there are time for questions from the board, comments or questions about Mark's report. Seeing none. Okay. We'll now take comments from the public on Mark's report. Is anyone in the audience or online wanting to make a comment?
And we did just want to remind those joining us in the online community to raise your hand. Please press *9. And if raising your hand to mute and unmute yourself, press *6. There are no comments online at this time, and there are no comments in the room.
Thank you, Martina. So now, seeing no more comments, it says, let's bring it back to the board. But we don't have a motion. It's not required. So I'm just going to assume that there are no more comments, or does anybody have I have a comment. I listened to the podcast. It was really terrific. It simplifies all the things that we do. And Mark, congratulations. It was really clear. Thanks. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on the consent calendar. Items will occur prior to the board's discussion of the consent calendar. Anything that the public would like to talk about, the board may approve the entire consent calendar in one action, or items on the consent calendar may be removed by any board member or staff member for separate discussion and vote. And I think we only have one item, and that's the minutes. Any member of the public who would like to comment on the consent calendar, please identify yourself. Seeing and hearing none, we're moving on. No, I know. Take it easy. So we will now ask the board for, can someone move to?
I would move it, but I want to move it with the correction that was made, and I don't know if it's been uploaded yet. Okay, so I would move the consent calendar. Second.
Moved by Director Kohler, seconded by Director Hertz. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you so much. Okay, now we will go to staff reports. First, our report is the finance report. Marin Wildlife Treasurer Elisa Schiffman will provide the staff with a report on this item. Are you there?
Actually, I'm going to be taking care of that today. She's taking care of some Southern Marin Fire business right now. So detained from being able to come here, but she did publish her report. You can see it's early in the fiscal year, so not much to report. But what I can report upon as far as the closeout of the previous fiscal year is all of our member agencies have received the requested reporting information and literally are pouring in today. I think we received 3 of them today.
Thank you. Did anyone who read the budget have any questions about this? Okay. I will now take questions from the public. Are there any members of the public who have questions about the budget report?
I see no hands at this time.
Thank you so much. Okay, seeing none, let's bring it back to the board for any further discussion. No discussion. Okay. Item 7B, Work Plan Implementation Update. Planning and Programming Manager and CRELOC will provide the board with the staff report for this item. Anne.
Great. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This will be fairly brief, but feel free to ask me questions if there are other things you want to dig into here. So as you all know, we take a house out approach. Our inspection program has been going hard, and we are now at over 26,000 inspections this year. That means homes all around the JPA area, and that includes the Novato and Santa Fe numbers. The Defensible Space Alliance is at now over 18,000 home inspections. So this is a pretty amazing program going gung-ho, and I think there might be pizza in the works for hitting certain milestones, so very exciting. And as you all know, the goal is to inspect every home every 2 to 3 years. The CHIPPR program is going strong as well, and this helps residents do defensible space work and pick up that material for free. There are 30 weeks, 6 rounds. Each round includes 1 week in each of the 5 zones. We're currently in the 5th round, so we've been going for quite a while, and we're at over 3,300 pickups at this point, and still getting lots of 5-star reviews. And then our grant program is going strong as well. We've awarded about over 160 grants this year so far. And just to note, the grants this year really focus on Zone 0. And there is an income and age eligibility requirement. And you need to open your report in order to access the program. So if you get an inspection at your home, open that report within 30 days and start taking action and coordinating with our grants specialist. And then we'll be able to help you do your work in Zone 0, including gutter guards, vents, non-combustible fence gate attachments as well. So everybody stole my thunder here on Ember Stomp. So I'm just going to say that it was a real pleasure to work with all these folks. There were a lot of people who put a lot of time and energy into Ember Stomp. With 5 Marin Wildfire tables, we had a lot of people manning those tables. So just want to give a big thank you to everyone who helped out with that. It was a lot of fun. And I want to note that the Greater Mill Valley Fuel Break, which this board approved last month in August, has now kicked off. So with the kickoff of all of these projects, we hold a crew training. We train the crews in both Spanish and English, talk about what plants to avoid, what kind of work we're going to focus on for this project, what kinds of wildlife might be in the area, cultural resources, things like that. So that took place on September 8th. So that's a big deal. Really excited to get this work underway. The area on the right, the eastern edge, is where work is starting for the season. And that's also generally where we're going to hold a public field trip. So as you all know, we love to bring the public out to these projects to show our work. So we're looking at October 29th in the afternoon, 2 to 4 p.m., and we'll be sharing more information once we have it. We'll likely be requiring RSVPs for this one and may end up using a van to get people in and out safely rather than having folks try to park and walk on these streets. There's very limited parking. And with that, I'll just invite everyone to take a look at our veg management page and all of the great resources out there on the web, on this web page, on the project web pages, and on the science and research page. And I'm happy to take questions.
And now is the time for the board to make questions, have questions or comments on the report.
And if you have the information,
yeah.
fantastic attendance at Ember Stomp, but do we have any data on how many out-of-county people were there? Is that going to be something maybe we can talk? Because I know when you walk in the board, where you could put your little pin where you were from, and so many out-of-county pins were up there. I was just curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would punt that over to Bill Tyler,
Okay,
who's going to talk extensively about Ember
got it.
Stomp and all the
Thanks.
attendance. Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? Well, I would like to say that I was there. I was sitting behind the grants booth, and I would say that we had a huge crowd. The average age was probably around 65 or 70, which is my cohort. And wanting to know if they had how to do it exactly and whether they still had time left in this period and when to do what. And our staff was absolutely fantastic. Josh was great, and Martina was great. Everybody got their questions answered. So it was really a pleasure to be there. So that's my comment. Okay, moving on now. Yeah. So, if there are no more questions or comments from the board, I'd like to take public comments on this item. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to bring this back to the board for any further discussion before we move on. Okay, hearing none, we're going to item 8, the one action item on our agenda. A Marin County Forest Health and Fire Resilience Public Works Plan, Marin PWP. Anne will provide the staff report for this item. Anne, take it away.
Great, thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And so let's get started. Great. So today we're going to talk about the Marin County Forest Health and Fire Resilience Public Works Plan. We're very excited to bring this item to you today. This has been a long process to get to this big milestone. So thank you everybody for joining us both in person and online to hear more about this. So I'm going to present some of the slides. Mark's going to help present many of the slides, and Emily Capello with Panorama Environmental will also help present today. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of wildfire, especially in coastal Marin. We're going to talk about our general approach, which is a house-out approach, and vegetation management is one piece of our overall strategy. We're going to talk about why vegetation management is part of that strategy. And then we're going to talk about the coastal zone, the regulatory context, what a PWP, Public Works Plan, even is, and what kinds of projects we might plan under this PWP in the future. We're going to talk about what public comments we received, letters and emails, and we'll also be taking public comment again today. And we'll talk more about this process and the future opportunities for public comment. I want to note that we have a lot of partners in this process, including all of our coastal member agencies who have been working very closely with myself and our consultants, Marin County Fire, Inverness Public Utilities District, Bolinas Fire, Stinson Beach Fire, Muir Beach Community Services District. State Parks has also been a really great partner in all of this. We've been communicating with National Park staff and many others to think through how to do work in coastal Marin. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mark to present the next couple of slides.
And I think you've heard me say many, many times, if you want to predict the future in wildfire, look at the past. And while we may not have as many significant fires in Marin as some of our neighboring counties have, we do have a rich wildfire history. Looking at my watch, it's actually yesterday was the anniversary of the September 17th, 1923 fire that burned from Ignacio all the way to the Bolinas Ridge. Think about that in today's paradigm of a fire burning from Ignacio to Bolinas Ridge, and we are a day out away from that anniversary. And our recent history, I'm sure we all remember the Vision Fire of 1995, 12,354 acres, 45 structures destroyed. And in the recent Woodward fire in 2020 caused by lightning. But if you look at the other smaller fires, you see significant fire history in the coast. And I'm going to use a quote from a legendary CDF prior to Cal Fire, CDF battalion chief by the name of Ed Poe. Spent his entire career working on the Sonoma coast, and his saying was, "Nothing burns like the coast until the coast burns." And if you know Ed, you can understand why he came up with the saying like that. But when you've seen the coast burn, like you can see it burn, then it makes a ton of sense. And then we've seen the update for our fire hazard severity maps. The map on the left is the 2007, I believe, map for the fire hazard severity zones. And then CAL FIRE updated the fire hazard severity zones. And the darker the color, the increased risk. So you see that there's been a significant change in the fire hazard risk. The uncolored area is all the federal lands, which CAL FIRE does not do any of the modeling in there. But what you see, though, is a trend that is increasing in the predicted fire behavior. And then finally, let's talk about our house out approach. It would be great if there was a silver bullet for our wildfire mitigation problem. There is not. And so that's why we need to use everything in our toolbox to get this done. Starting with home hardening, defensible space. Zone 0 is going to be a critical tool to help create fire resilience within our communities, but it's not going to stop there. I like to use an analogy shared with me by Michael Wara from Stanford. Talked about cars and the safety systems within cars. We have seatbelts, we have airbags, and now we even have traffic avoidance systems to keep us from getting into an accident at all. So I look at the seatbelt as our home hardening and defensible space. I look at our airbags as zone 1 and 2 and the wildland urban interface boundary. That's that buffer that is close to where our people are. And then if we are going to do any work further out, that's our traffic avoidance systems within the cars. Because if we can keep fires from creating tremendous amounts of energy and moving with fast speeds coming into our neighborhoods, then we are giving our residents more time to evacuate, allowing them to evacuate under safer conditions, and we're giving our firefighters an opportunity to succeed and giving an opportunity for home hardening and zone 0 to work. And so now that we have traffic avoidance, do we stop using our seatbelts? No. We are using all of those resources together. And that's why a systems approach anchored in a house out approach is very important for us. But we do have to use all of our tools. And then, I thought we were going to do slope one.
There you go.
There we go. Or am I out of order?
It doesn't matter. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, I'm on a roll. Sorry.
Keep going.
But then there's also a lot of concern about, well, a lot of the research says that we really don't need to do work outside of 100 feet. That is true in a flat environment. Most of the work that we are doing is not in a flat environment. So in a flat environment, 100 feet away from the house is 100 feet of treatment. In the sloped environment, as you see on the top right, 100 feet along the land does not create defensible space 100 feet from the house, because you have tall trees that are standing that are now much closer than 100 feet. Also, with that slope, you now start having alignment of fuels, heat, the lift that fires create in convection, and now fires are getting into the canopy much easier on the slope than they do in the flats. And so that's why when we work in the flats, we're very much sticking to 100 feet. But when we start getting into slopes with terrain features that are going to funnel the heat and energy, that's when we start going beyond 100 feet for our treatments.
Thanks, Mark. And sorry, I think some of the slides moved in location. Well, either way. How does this house out approach look like in West Marin? Here are a few of the numbers. We still in West Marin aim to inspect every home every 2 to 3 years. In 2024, that meant about 2,355 inspections in West Marin, and chipper pickups in 2024 was about 1,200 chipper pickups. And then in the grants, with our grants program, we provided about 27 different grants. Plus, we've been working on 15 direct assistance projects, which is rather than reimbursement, going out and working with property owners directly to do work. Along evacuation routes, we've been conducting risk modeling and looking at resilient roadways to take a look specifically at which roads are higher risk, lower risk. What can we do to move the needle? We've done several miles of evacuation route work, vegetation management along miles. We were estimating around 10 miles in 2024. And this includes coordination with the county in terms of the compliance. And then shaded fuel breaks, we don't have much to show in this arena yet, but we do have a project that's been approved, as you all know, through the governor's emergency proclamation. So we are looking to start that work actually in the very near future. So why vegetation management at all? I am a science geek and spent quite a bit of time in natural resources management as a biologist, working in restoration, ecologist, and working in climate and climate adaptation, et cetera. So I'm going to go back to my roots for a moment here, so bear with me. I wanted to take a step back and take a look at vegetation management and why this is even needed, both from an ecological standpoint and, as Mark can attest, a fire standpoint. Before European colonization of our area, we had frequent low-intensity fire that kept vegetation growth in check. And the Coast Miwok and other indigenous groups burned these landscapes pretty frequently, and even our, coastal grasslands every 1 to 3 years, our coastal redwoods every 10 to 30 years. So if you take a look at a variety of different resources, including our fantastic one-TAM generated Marin Regional Forest Health Strategy, you can take a look at how fire return interval, or the amount of time in between fires, has changed over time since we colonized this area and made cultural burning illegal in 1850, and got so good at fire suppression that we have largely eliminated fire from the landscape as an ecological process that keeps that vegetation in check. So the result is we've got a buildup of dead and down material, so dead stuff, sticks, logs, on the landscape that isn't getting burned every few years. We have also live vegetation, so trees that are overly dense. And if you take a look at some of those resources out there, you see that, you may have had 100 trees per acre in landscapes that now have 1,000 trees per acre. The result is more stressed trees, more vulnerable to drought, disease, wildfire. We also have a lot of ladder fuel that then means, and a lot of that extra biomass on the landscape that then means when fire does arrive, it is no longer low intensity and beneficial. It can often be quite catastrophic and high intensity and high severity. So this ecological process and the factors that contribute to it are a bit out of whack. So a lot of the work that we do out there ends up being kind of like a fire surrogate. So we do a lot of the work on the landscape to keep some of that vegetation in check. We have a lot of non-native invasive plants that have invaded these landscapes. We'll show you some pictures in a little bit, but a lot of non-native invasive plants that come in and establish themselves. They're quite robust and can outcompete the native vegetation. We'll skip that one. So when we talk about that dead and down material, this is the kind of thing we're talking about. So a tree may fall during a windstorm. Maybe it's an older tree and was going to fall down anyway. Over time, a lot of this vegetation or this dead vegetation would break down naturally. But without low intensity frequent wildfire, it has built up on the landscape to quite a scale that would lead to a higher intensity, higher severity wildfire here. So the kind of the kinds of things that we do within a project, this is within the Greater Novato Shaded Fuel Break, is not eliminate the dead and down, but remove some or most of the dead and down in these areas. So if you take a look on the left, you see a fallen tree. You see a lot of leaves, small twigs, small branches, and the larger stuff. And on the right, the smaller material that's more receptive to fire and more vulnerable to changes in humidity. So on a very dry day, that would dry out first and be more receptive to fire. That's been removed, but the larger logs remain because they're great wildlife habitat. There is importance there. Salamanders, lizards, et cetera, et cetera. And we also spend a lot of time leaving the trees and pulling the weeds. So these beautiful oak trees remain in place in a shaded fuel break. This is again part of the Greater Novato Shaded Fuel Break. But that non-native invasive understory, in this case French broom, is removed. French broom is very aggressive. It gets very, very dense and not valuable to wildlife. Deer don't eat it. I really wish it would. It would be so helpful if deer would eat it. Deer don't eat it. It ends up being so dense that it excludes wildlife. Wildlife find it impenetrable as well. It also changes the soil chemistry because it fixes nitrogen. It deposits a lot of seeds in the soil, so this is a long-term commitment here anytime we're pulling broom. So this project, as with many, many, many of our projects, is really a broom pulling project where we're removing the non-native understory and then allowing native forbs and other plants to grow and have at least some chance of growing in this area. Now you'll notice there have been a tree or two removed in this project, and that is they were Monterey pine, and they're also not native and quite fire prone. So most of the work really does not target trees. It targets the non-native invasive understory and the ladder fuels that would take a surface fire up into the crown and potentially lead to a more catastrophic fire and the more tree mortality. So we hope that projects like this will ensure the long-term resilience of these forested lands and the woodlands so that the trees remain, and we're removing the non-native invasive understory to make it a more biodiverse, healthy ecosystem. We're also doing this along roads, and this is another example, again, broom removal of that non-native or understory, and you'll note that the trees remain. Some of them may be limbed up to reduce that ladder fuel. So I'll let Mark talk a little bit about how we know that this works.
I think we've shared a ton of scientific research that shows that this works, but we also have a lot of on the ground evidence, actual testimonials, lives saved because of it. Starting off, then there's far more than that's on this list, but we just don't have the time to go through that list. I like to talk about the 2017 Thomas fire only from a personal perspective. I was the operations section chief assigned to that fire. And it was my job to put together the plan and lead that plan to suppress that fire. As the fire was well established in Santa Barbara above the hills of Montecito, we were able to connect with the Los Padres National Forest and the Montecito Fire Department. Those two agencies had worked very well together with the residents, had fuel breaks right along the wildland urban interface boundary, and had a very aggressive program of home hardening and defensible space. When it came to the fuel break work that had been done prior to us being there for the fire, it increased our fire ground efficiency dramatically. Where I would normally put 4 crews, I could put 1 and have it and still have high confidence that they would be able to complete their task. So when that fire came off the mountain under extreme sundowner event, 1,300 homes were impacted by fire. 12 structures were destroyed. That's an amazing ratio in today's wildfire environment. And to me, that was that threshold moment for me to change the direction of my career from suppression to wildfire prevention. 2021 Caldor fire, interesting fire because in that same year, 2 fires, the Caldor and the Dixie, were the only 2 fires in the state's history to pass the Sierra Crest. Only 2 fires have ever done it. They did it in the same year. The Caldor fire had many vegetation treatment projects within it. Some people point to those vegetation treatment projects as the reason why the Caldor fire got so big. That's not accurate. Despite that work, the fire got big. But what the evidence we do have, in the middle of the Caldor fire, there was a massive project that when the fire burned through that project, it burned under low intensities and it was a healthy fire. Extreme fire went around the perimeter of that project. As the fire went into Pollock Pines, and I was able to talk to a fire captain from the U.S. Forest Service that was there, the urban interface boundary treatments that had been conducted saved Pollock Pines. And then as the fire entered into South Lake Tahoe, per the incident commander, they went from 150-foot flame lengths to 15-foot flame lengths. Firefighters were able to take action. 2024, I really love this example. A very good friend of mine was the operations section chief for that fire. In the middle of the fire, he called me up and says, Mark, you have to know what's going on. So much of the work that you were doing in Marin was done here, and that is why we are succeeding where we are on the Park fire. Where there was no treatment, they were not succeeding. Where there was treatment, they had tremendous successes on the Park fire. And then on the Eaton fire, there's a lot of proof that it worked, but I'm going to bring up actually someone you've met, and that is Scott Farley. His dad's house was impacted. He had decent zone 0 and a non-wood connection to his house. His house is one of the few houses in that neighborhood standing. So this work does succeed on the fire ground.
Thanks, Mark. I'd also like to share an example, and this is one that's not in the formal case studies because this is a project that I worked on in Sonoma County before joining Marin Wildfire. So in 2019, I volunteered on a crew to do vegetation management on a private parcel east of Santa Rosa. And I, dragged dead and down around and cut up ladder fuel and did all of those things. And I did that on the right side of this photo. I want to note that the dotted line in the middle is a property boundary, and that's where the fence was, and that's where our project activities ended. On the left, no vegetation management was done. We also did some prescribed burning. So because we had done the vegetation management ahead of time and removed ladder fuels, we were able to do some prescribed burning. 2019 is when I got certified to do prescribed burns. And the glass fire came through in 2020. It burned, and I've confirmed this with the property owner multiple times because I had a hard time believing it too, but the way he describes it, the fire went around the treatment area where we had been active and burned on either side of it. And the trees in the treatment area were not impacted. The northern spotted owl habitat was not impacted. And on the left, you can see that even a year after the glass fire burned through, there's nothing growing in the soil. The soil is still bare. The seeds, the organic matter went. The understory is still dead, and many of the trees are dead as well. So the recovery in the treatment area is kind of a non-issue. In the untreated area, the fire impacts were pretty severe. In other places on these folks' property, they lost homes, they lost a lot of areas where we had not been able to work. So if we had been able to extend this project area a little more, maybe we would have saved some of those homes. But for me, this kind of example really shows in the field. I mean, our work was tested with the glass fire, and it really shows the kinds of things that you can do and the impacts after a wildfire and how you can really modify fire behavior through this activity. So bringing it back to coastal Marin and Marin Wildfire, this is a screenshot of our project area map. So different board-approved core projects are shown in this map. We have a few purple now in West Marin, which is very exciting because that is through there are some smaller projects that we've been working with the county on, which is great, along roadways. And then we also have the Coastal Fuel Reduction Network adjacent to communities in the coastal zone because of the emergency proclamation. But you can see that there's a lot of area where we have not been able to do work, and that is largely Some of that is federal land, and we've been working with National Park Service and GGNRA staff to coordinate, which is actually a great partnership. But part of that is because the regulatory burden in coastal Marin and along the entire coast of California is quite onerous. The Coastal Act does provide a significant barrier to getting work done in coastal California and coastal Marin. In the 1970s, when the Coastal Act was passed, 1976, there was a lot going on in coastal California that put our beautiful coastline at risk. And there were, nuclear facilities and development and kind of a rush to develop much of the coast and exclude it from public access. And so the Coastal Act, passed in 1976, addressed that incredible need to protect coastal California. So we all benefit from the Coastal Act being in place. The Coastal Act, however, was not really designed to deal with projects like ours, land stewardship type activities. It knows how to handle timber harvesting or agriculture. It doesn't really have a process for us. So the terminology that we end up working with when we're working towards Coastal Act compliance is development. We need a coastal development permit, even to remove a non-native invasive weed in the understory. Development also includes any change in the density or intensity of use of land and the removal or harvesting of major vegetation other than for agricultural purposes, kelp harvesting and timber operations. So it'd be easier to run a timber harvesting operation than to clear a broom understory in the coastal zone. So there are quite a few barriers to doing work in coastal California. The Coastal Commission staff came up with a streamlining tool called a Public Works Plan. This tool it includes a lot of different steps, but the document that you would prepare called a Public Works Plan, it's not a comprehensive plan for your coast. It is a regulatory framework that front loads the conversations with Coastal Commission staff. What is forest health? What is fire fuels management? What kinds of things is staff comfortable with in terms of activities, locations? How are you going to protect sensitive species, sensitive habitats, et cetera? So what you do is you have a lot of these conversations, and we've been talking with the Coastal Commission for 3 years now, and there's been staff turnover, so I think that's contributed to the timeline. But what you do is you front load a lot of those conversations, and then you record kind of the outcome of some of those conversations in this document, the Public Works Plan. Then the Public Works Plan isn't a project in itself. You don't identify specific project areas, but it lays the framework for future projects and future permit applications. So for us, working with Coastal Commission staff, we thought about where future projects might take place and where the Coastal Commission would take jurisdiction. So generally, our program area is not the same as a project area. It is just simply where the Coastal Commission would require a coastal development permit should we propose a project in that location. So it's very broad. There's no budget in the world that would allow for treatment of the entire program area. So the intent is not to treat the whole program area. The intent is to have flexibility to work with science and modeling and the need and local expertise to identify appropriate targeted locations for future projects. And with that, I'll have Emily talk about the PWP in more detail.
Thanks, Anne. So all future projects, specifically those that are within environmentally sensitive habitat areas, which are referred to as ESHA for the coast, and coastal wetlands, would need to provide ecological benefit either directly or indirectly. ESHA are any areas where there are plants or animal life or their habitats that are either rare or especially valuable. And in the coastal California, that's pretty much most areas. And they're areas which could be easily disturbed or degraded by human activities or development. So any future vegetation treatment projects under the PWP will be classified into two categories, either forest health projects or fire prevention projects, or in many cases, it's both. Forest health projects provide ecological benefits and improve the habitat's fire resiliency, including within ESHA. Fire prevention projects, while designated to protect ecosystems as much as possible, do include a higher level of vegetation removal to protect existing structures or infrastructures, such as homes or roadways. And so those are kind of closer to those infrastructures within that, closer to zone 0 and zone 1 and 2. Both forest health and fire prevention project types provide fire resiliency benefits in the coastal zone to protect against loss of life, property, and the destruction of ecosystems from catastrophic wildfire. The PWP as a whole requires that the majority of the total acres treated would be forest health projects. So each individual project might not, but overall, the total treatment must be forest health projects. The PWP was designed to incorporate the structure of the CalVTP, including the types of treatment projects. So the forest health and fire prevention project categories are consistent with the 3 treatments project types from the CalVTP, and as you can see, are crosswalked within this Venn diagram. Under the PWP, forest health projects can include projects that are categorized through the CalVTP as ecological restoration, wildland-urban interface or WUI fuel reduction, and in some cases, fuel break activities. Other smaller projects that don't fall under the CalVTP could also be covered by the PWP, but only if they actually show that they are consistent with what the PWP requires. So what does this mean for actual future projects? The CalVTP identifies treatment activities that Marin Wildfire could use to implement future projects consistent with the PWP. This PWP covers future project treatments that include hand, crew, or manual treatments that involve use of hand tools and handheld power tools, such as shovels, chainsaws, weed whackers, loppers, all different means to thin target vegetation. And for the Marin Wildfire project, that's often just pulling broom with hands. They could also be motorized ground-based equipment that can be used to cut or crush and chop vegetation. It also could include prescribed burning. And under the CalVTP, prescribed burning includes both pile burning and also broadcast burning. And then also it could apply herbicides, but only in certain areas in a targeted manner that would really be done to stop or minimize growth of invasive species, such as being painted on cut stubs of eucalyptus or broom, which is typical for what Marin Wildfire does. Once you have your projects, there's also a slew of required measures under the PWP. So all projects that are proposed under the PWP have to be consistent with the CalVTP PEIR standard project requirements, which are called SPRs, and we've brought them up on a bunch of different projects. There's also specific mitigation measures that fall under the CalVTP PEIR. But in addition to that, there's also coastal vegetation treatment standards, or coastal VTS. And these are project standards that further require programmatic reviews of the PWP, tribal coordination, and community engagement, and also some measures that are specifically looking at future vegetation treatments in the coastal area that are implemented or within proximity to ESHA, which were the environmentally sensitive habitat areas, or coastal wetlands. So there's additional ones there. And those are important because they're definitions that are part of the Coastal Act, which is why they have this carve out, because they are specifically defined in the Coastal Act. In addition to that, and just because Marin Wildfire projects all have them, we would also be looking at the project design and implementation features, our PDIFs, and making sure that those are being implemented as well. So there's a whole host of different types of measures that are required for any project that goes through the PWP. Next slide. All right, so how are future projects processed under the PWP, since the PWP is the framework? Once the PWP is certified, future projects can be proposed if they're consistent within that framework in the PWP, including the types of projects and activities, as well as compliance with the required measures that we discussed previously. Future projects would need to complete environmental compliance under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and also they would need technical studies where appropriate to support the compliance. regardless of the type of compliance under CEQA, the Cal VTP SPRs and coastal VTSs, as well as the PDFs, would be required and implemented. So even if it weren't a project-specific analysis under the Cal VTP, you would still be tied to those SPRs. Once the environmental compliance document is complete, then you would file a notice of impending development, or a NOID, that would be prepared and submitted to the Coastal Commission, which includes appropriate public and agency notification. And the Coastal Commission would then review this package and determine whether or not the project is consistent with the PWP and can receive a permit. So there's a lot of steps that happen between where we are right now to actually getting boots on the ground. And throughout all of this process, Marin Wildfire, oops, I did it myself, would continue to work closely with Coastal Commission staff. One other piece of information that is important is sort of what's the public process throughout this whole future projects. So for each future projects, there'd be additional opportunities for the public to participate in the process. It starts with the development of the projects, because that would be with Marin Wildfire during their annual work plan. In addition, any public or interested parties could also participate during the CEQA process, regardless of which CEQA review comes before the board. Or if the project uses a PSA or an ISMND, then those have very specific requirements for outreach. And then finally, when the project reaches the Coastal Commission for the NOID, there's a slew of different types of notification that's required for every project, which you can see here. So it's owners and renters, local governments, relevant agencies, and then any other interested parties. So there's many different opportunities for the public to continue being part of the process. I think that's back to you.
Great, thank you. So now a little bit on what kinds of projects we might be seeking approval for through this process, again, in the future. I think we can take a look at our emergency exemption project as a potential example. So on March 1st, the governor declared a state of emergency regarding wildfire risk in California, and that provided streamlining avenues for projects, certain projects. If you go through the process, you do a certain level of analysis and you start working with the different state agencies, California Natural Resources Agency, Cal EPA, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Coastal Commission, and your local tribes, et cetera, then you can get different projects approved. And we were able to do that. So in contrast, you see the program area shaded and project area in red, those very small polygons on the map. So our projects cover about 1% of the program area. So these projects really focus on WUI areas, so directly between homes and wildlands and along roads, and prioritize it's the same kind of work that we do in other locations, limbing up trees, reducing understory, reducing cover of non-native invasive species, et cetera. That's the kind of thing that we would envision in the future doing under this public works plan, in addition to, whatever the Coastal Commission would like to see in terms of forest health type activities. These project areas will be informed by science. We have fire pathways modeling to tell us where fire would move very quickly across the landscape and enter these communities. And so we can target these particular locations for fuel treatment work. And in addition, maybe target those neighborhoods for home hardening and defensible space and grants and inspections and all of that as well. So we're in the process, as you may be aware, of starting our CWPP update, our Community Wildfire Protection Plan update. And that document and that process of working with all of those different stakeholders and those experts and all of the modeling will help us identify high priority areas for future projects. This particular map just shows under a Diablo wind scenario how fire may move into the Stinson Beach and Muir Beach area. So it's science like this that helps inform future project design. So what do projects typically look like? This is roadside vegetation management in the Inverness area. As you can see, it's very light touch. We're limbing up trees, removing some of the shrubs that are growing into the into the roadways, limbing up trees so that a fire truck would be able to get through and reach residents. This is not in the coastal zone, but this is really typical of our shaded field break work where the trees remain, the forest remains. We remove the non-native invasive understory and encourage the native species to grow. So in terms of process, we are here at that mustard yellow rectangle site type shape there. So we have a public works plan that is available for consideration today. The next step in the process will be going to the Coastal Commission sometime this winter and going through all of their public noticing, public hearing, and have Coastal Commission consideration. And then assuming they vote to support, then we would have a certified PWP, and then we would enter the process of actually planning future projects under the PWP. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the response to comments.
Thanks. So as part of the
Give me
process.
1 minute, 1 minute. Emily,
Yes.
please say your whole name and who you are with.
Oh, sorry. Emily Capello with Panorama Environmental.
Thank you.
Certainly. So as part of the.
Can I interrupt and make
Certainly.
one comment? I know we love our acronyms, but not everyone that's online knows what those are. So to the extent that we could say those, and I just want to make one more comment, which is kind of in the middle. I know we're using captions, but we use these at our Fairfax Town Council, and they're actually readable. These are too small, so maybe before the next meeting, we can work on making them large enough for people that have some sight implications so they can read it. Anyway,
I want to stay back on topic. This is an enormous amount of information. And so I know there must be questions and comments on this. So please go ahead, Emily.
So the public works plan was circulated for 6 weeks, and there was a public hearing on it on August 5th in Point Reyes Station, and it was done in Point Reyes Station because it's required to be in the coastal zone. And we received at the end of the 6 weeks period a number of comments that were raised by the public on the public works plan. So some of the main themes that we got were questions regarding specific projects under the public works plan, and if they would include logging or biochar, biogas, or bio-oil development. So we explained different types of projects similar to how we've explained here that might come in the future and would be addressed each one on their own. And then we also explained that there would not be any logging that is a part of the public works plan. And also that it's highly unlikely that you would have any biochar, biogas, or bio-oil projects. But if somebody did have the right system where they could use an air curtain burner, that might be something, or some other type of biomass option could be included, but then that would need to be part of the individual project CEQA review. So you wouldn't ever have those systems through the public works plan itself. You would have additional review and additional consideration under the specific project. There were also a lot of questions about why any projects would go beyond 100 feet of the structure, and also a lot of support for only using home hardening and defensible space work. I think we've addressed that already. But just as was said previously, 100 feet on the ground in a slope area might not be 100 feet from the house. There was a lot of questions about whether or not the work proposed under the public works plan would actually reduce wildfire risk. I think we've also sort of already addressed that, but there's a lot of studies and also real life experiences that show that the type of work that Marin Wildfire is doing, which is removing dead and down, removing ladder fuels, and limbing up, really does have an effect on wildfire. There were questions regarding the process for authorizing specific projects and environmental review of individual projects. We've also already talked about this, where only after having the PWP do specific projects get proposed under the annual work plan, have to undergo CEQA, and then get to actually have a permit if they are consistent with the PWP, which is the key thing. They always have to be shown to be consistent. There were also Sorry, I got lost. There were questions about the environmental effects of any of these projects and why it wasn't discussed in the Public Works Plan. And because there are no projects proposed at this time, we didn't look at the effects of those projects. We looked at the overall types of effects and the types of projects that could happen under the Public Works Plan and what's required. And there were also specific comments about northern spotted owl and then wood rats. And we did have some responses just in general, not because there is a project being proposed, but just so that we can continue to educate the public about the type of work that Marin Wildfire does, and the study that happened in Marin County that showed that habitat loss from development and field treatment was one of the lowest relative threats to northern spotted owl, and that in the long run, it can be beneficial to northern spotted owl because you have habitat retention should a fire come through. And then also just that there are a lot of measures to protect northern spotted owl and any other sensitive wildlife habitat, as well as leaving the wood rat habitat as well. And then finally, there was also a lot of comments about the use of herbicide, and that would be very limited and be required only as allowed under the Cal VTP. There were also comments both in opposition to, but also in support of the Public Works Plan.
Great, thank you, Emily. And one more note on the use of herbicides. While we sometimes we'll cut a stump and dab herbicide on the stump in order to reduce regrowth, I think in our coastal fuel reduction network project in all of Inverness, I don't think we have any herbicide proposed to be used within any of that area. So it's not a frequent item that we use, but it is a tool in the tool belt, especially in terms of non-native invasives. So some of these we've touched on. We have a frequently asked questions document that's attached to the board report and also available online. Just trying to address some of the high-level questions that sometimes get asked. Will the whole program area be treated? No, absolutely not. We will have project areas proposed in future board meetings. Currently, we have about 1% of the program area proposed for treatment. Is this logging? No, we like to keep our canopy intact, and the projects that we do are really kind of the opposite of logging. We keep those larger trees in place and remove ladder fuels and smaller diameter things so that we're keeping our forests intact and we're making them more resilient to drought and wildfire in the future. Why isn't home hardening included in the Marin PWP? Because it's not the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction, and this is specifically permitting for vegetation management type activities. There are lots of things that we do that are not included in the PWP, and that's because it's really a Coastal Act, Coastal Commission document. But if you want to check out our work plan, we talk about all of these different programs and projects as part of that house out approach. And then we just addressed the herbicide question and protecting sensitive species and habitats. There are a number of measures, both in our project design and implementation features, and that will be required in future projects to protect these very important species and habitats. So I want to end with acknowledging the many people and entities and organizations and agencies who have helped us thus far and who will continue working with us throughout this whole process. The California Coastal Commission staff has been really fantastic working with us. Their understanding of wildfire has really evolved over time, especially with the LA fires. And they've been providing advice on process and input on how best to protect these sensitive species and ecosystems. Our member agencies in the coastal zone, Marin County Fire, Inverness, Ballina, Stinson Beach, Muir Beach, all really contributing local expertise and priorities and reviewing maps upon maps upon maps and draft project descriptions and things like that. We have a number of very qualified consultants who are helping us every step of the way, including Panorama Environmental and their vast knowledge, Sequoia Ecological, all of our wildlife biologists and botanists, etc., Far Western and their archaeologists, RGH and their geologists, Green Info Network and their GIS, and Willow Labs and their fire pathways and other modeling. really great partnership with the land management agencies in the area. Even if we're not doing work on different parcels, we're talking to them and coordinating. Our PWP does overlap a little bit into California State Parks lands, but not on federal lands. But either way, we're coordinating with both agencies. Also, we brought in UC Cooperative Extension to help provide input on potential forest health treatments. Given a location that's at high fire risk, what kinds of forest health treatments would you recommend in these areas? So a big thank you to them. Also, we are coordinating with the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria on all of our projects. We provide project information to them and invite their input every step of the way, and we look forward to future meetings in the coastal zone. And then I also want to thank the One TAM partnership and their fantastic Marin Regional Forest Health Strategy, which also informs this work and this document and future projects. And with that, I want to end with our recommended board action, which is to review the PWP, receive public comment related to the PWP, and adopt the resolution approving the Marin PWP. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that very comprehensive, fact-loaded presentation. And I now want to take it to the board before you forget all the details for questions and comments. Yes, Director
And
Finn.
my question has to do with flexibility. If I understand correctly, the Coastal Commission has the authority to both approve the PWP itself and subsequently the individual projects as they come down. If due to unforeseen or unforeseeable circumstances or change in circumstances, we discover that our plan needs to be modified, do we go back to square one with the Coastal Commission on the individual plan or on the PWP? Or is there a mechanism where we can, say, mid-project, ask the Coastal Commission for permission to continue based upon the changed circumstances?
Yeah, that's a great question. We can modify the PWP, and in that case, we would bring that modified version of the PWP back to this board and then again back to the Coastal Commission.
Director Way.
Backs on to Tom's question, which is if hypothetically we get an approval of a PWP, what is the term of the permit length? Or, and this is sort of piggybacks on what Tom was asking, if we have a change of circumstances, is the term extendable?
The term is for 10 years right now, unless Marin Wildfire isn't around. So there, it is actually spelled out that it's 10 years or until Marin Wildfire is no longer able to ask for projects.
An individual NOID approvals are less than 10 years, though, correct? 3 years?
They're 3 years. I think you can ask for then extensions, but it's typically 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine are kind of simple. One is, I actually read all the materials. It was quite a lot, and it really, the response to comments was really helpful, really well done. So I know a big team worked on that, but the plan itself is really great and answered a lot of questions that I might have from hearing concerns that people raised. But I think this presentation really highlights some of the key points. And I'm wondering, this is really simple. Do we post these presentations? Because I think it would be a great thing for people. Nobody's going to dig through all that stuff. It's too much.
Yes. So after the public hearing that we held on August 5th, we posted all of those materials, the slides, the posters, etc. And I've been uploading these slides to the shared drive so that we can share those as well.
So
And then
this
video,
presentation.
yes, and this video will be available on YouTube. So I'll work
Okay.
with Martina to make sure that they're in the archived materials.
And the other question I have, and excuse my ignorance, the Tamales Public Works Plan that was approved by the Coastal Commission, that
Mhm.
wasn't our project, right?
Correct. That is a state parks project specific to that state park unit.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I had a question about, you mentioned that the governor, there's a project that we're undertaking. Specifically, what is that?
The Coastal Fuel Reduction Network is about 500 acres of shaded fuel breaks adjacent to homes, neighborhoods, and roads in coastal Marin. And we worked with the different member agencies to narrow down where maybe high priority areas would be. So for example, in Inverness, we looked at the Vision Fire footprint and where, if that occurred today, where that would enter neighborhoods, and we prioritize those neighborhoods. So that project is available on the project webpage, and there's a map there for anyone to check it out.
The project webpage, is it different from Marin Wildfire?
It's at marinwildfire.org, and if you go to go to projects and vegetation management, or go to the zone, the West Marin zone, you'll be able to find it there.
Thank you so much. Okay. More questions, comments? Hi, Director Rodoni.
Yeah, staff, thanks for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I think, and the coast really appreciates it, the coastal communities. I think there's interest in doing more work during this opportunity on the coast, if possible. And I know the if possible usually means money. Just wondering if there's flexibility in our planning to do more work should more money become available through grants, through local donations, through some of our partner agencies.
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we have 500,000 allocated towards work in the coastal zone, and that's really to focus on that coastal fuel reduction network that has emergency and temporary approval from the state. So that approval lasts for 2 years, and we coordinated with all the different state agencies in order to get that approval, and are getting all the pieces in place now with contractors, further biological surveys, cultural resources surveys, et cetera. All that work is happening now. And we have, each season, it's a really tight time frame in order to do work in some of these areas. We're avoiding northern spotted owl nesting season, for instance, and thinking about the flowering season for different species. And so, and then once it starts raining, we want to make sure that we're not out there causing any erosion or anything like that. So it's a very short window of time to get work done. With that said, now that we have we have contractors coming on board and biologists who've been out in the field, and our archaeologists and everything else, we would like to implement as much as we can within the next 2 years. It's a bit of a test to see how much we can do in these short windows of time. So the plan is to do as much as we can and then go back and seek additional funding through our regular work plan development process, and then seek outside funding too. So the state has also suggested that if you have received a grant from a variety of different sources, including CAL FIRE, et cetera, you would have a longer period of time in which to implement your projects. So we'll be seeking outside funding. As it is, it's going to take us some time to implement that 1% of the program area that we're looking at. Yeah.
Any further comments at this point or questions from the board? Okay, then I would like to invite the public to comment on this presentation. When you come up, please state your name and who you're representing.
So at
You're
this
from. Yeah.
At this time, members of the public are invited to address the Board of Directors on the Marin County Forest Health and Fire Resilience Public Works Plan item only. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Remarks must remain respectful and courteous to the community. A timer will begin once a speaker starts. Please conclude within the allotted time, as microphones may be muted once 2 minutes have expired. For participants joining remotely, please use the raise your hand feature under the reactions to indicate your request to speak. And if participating by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute your line. We will begin with comments in the room. Let's get the timer up there. Sir?
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Mike Swayze. I'm the board president of Marine Conservation League. We've been following this project very closely. We've been invited Ann and consultants to come meet with us and explain similar presentation that you got today. We've submitted a letter to the MWPA largely in support of the plan, and I'm just going to hit the highlights from that letter. We commend staff and consultants for tackling such a complex and difficult planning process and documentation. I think we all get to see that today. We are satisfied that the environment wins out, that all environmental concerns are addressed. This is built on MWPA's best management practices. Additionally, the ecologically sound practices produced by the ESP partnership between fire service and environmental groups, that those practices were endorsed by this board. And on top of that, we have the additional requirements of the CalVTP, which are substantial, and now the Coastal Commission's vegetation treatment standards. That's all a lot. I think we're in good hands there. And finally, we commend MWPA commitment to the use of prescribed fire where possible, control of invasive species, monitoring past treatment conditions, and I think really importantly, continued engagement in the community regarding project outcomes and subsequent activities. And that's an area we offer assistance. We have public forums, we have events where, MWPA activities can be featured and you can hear from the public. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Swayze. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, is there someone else who would like to make public comments?
Okay, and it looks like we have an additional attendee in the room who would like to deliver public comment.
Please state your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Tim Walsh, and I'm from Corte Madera. I join everybody in thanking the group here and staff for their professionalism, access, transparency. And I've learned a lot in the years MWPA has been providing information. I'm one of 9 signers of a letter that mentioned a number of things. The responses were noted, and I thank you for those. One that wasn't really addressed was the carbon impact of this. My knowledge is largely Daniel Swain. There was a presentation about the climate and the atmosphere and carbon. And I would love to see the same focus put on the amount of carbon that's released for all of these actions and the probability of a fire coming through that area. It's a calculable measure, and also with the assumption that not 100% of the forest is burned, using current scientific papers to support how much carbon actually goes away when a fire comes through. So that's one item that wasn't addressed, and I think carbon is really important, and the probability of future fire in treated areas. CAL FIRE says it's 0.5 to 1% per year, which is 98% of this is done without the risk of fire. So that's a question that I'd love to have answered. Again, this is reinforcing what we've said before is the group. We prefer home hardening versus vegetation management. Home hardening is accretive. You don't have to do it again. Vegetation management is something that is a perpetual motion machine. Ultimately going back, whether it's the Miwoks or we're doing it through mastication, this is a problem. And then last, herbicides, it's a lightning rod. Why not just remove it? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Walsh. Is there someone else in the room who would like to speak?
So it does not appear that we have any additional comments here in the room at this time. Now going out to our remote environment. Looks like at this time we have about 4 comments. Okay, and starting with Mr. Daniel Swain, you may begin speaking when you're ready, sir. Oh.
Daniel Swain, can you hear us? Can you see us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Just was making sure my microphone was unmuted there. I'm Daniel Swain. I'm a climate scientist with the University of California, Agriculture and Natural Resources, and I have engaged pretty extensively with Marin Wildfire in recent years as it has spun up, and over a period where there have been many pretty catastrophic fires throughout California and the Western U.S. broadly. I also happen to grow up in Marin County, so it's been very fascinating as now somebody who studies weather and climate and wildfire to see the evolution over time of the projects that have been implemented in this part of the state and how the path moving forward looks like from here. And the point I really wanted to make in response to today's presentation is to just reiterate the notion that you really do have to be taking an all of the above approach, a portfolio approach, because the problem is multifactorial to begin with. There is no singular silver bullet solution. And so when we talk about intervention A versus intervention B and intervention C, it really often is a matter of doing all of these things, perhaps weighting them differently in different contexts and different locations. But vegetation management versus home hardening, I don't think they're in opposition. They really work best together in concert. And I think that's probably the way, certainly, that the science points us in this moment is towards an all of the above approach, since you can't do everything everywhere all the time. But the more things you do, the more layers of protection, the more layers of risk reduction that you can potentially achieve. And I am glad to see that this does appear to be a focus of the plan so far and moving forward. So that's I'll keep to my 2 minutes here. Thanks for the opportunity to comment today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swain. Appreciate your comments. So Martina, are there other people waiting to speak?
Yes, there
Okay,
are.
thank you.
So our next speaker, we will now have, I believe it is Janess Reynolds. You may begin speaking when you are ready.
Good afternoon, everybody. Many of us spent countless hours monitoring MWPA's vegetation projects, documenting before and after impacts, and preparing detailed public comments for these hearings. Yet some comments received replies while others were ignored. Why the inconsistency? With a show of hands, could the board indicate who has actually read the comments in this packet? If you choose not to respond, then let me state for the record, it's deeply troubling that the public has no assurance our input is even being read, let alone considered by this voting body. Our choices matter, our voices matter, and transparency builds trust, and trust is what this process urgently needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a point of order, the board cannot react to public comment at this time. So, but we hear you. So thank you so much. All right. Next, please.
Okay. So for our next comment, we have, looks like Jack Jashite. You may begin speaking when you are ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, thanks, everyone. I appreciate the professional presentation, as has been said, and an opportunity for the public, and even starting the timer after I've spoken. Very, very sporting of you. I'm Jack Gescheit of the Tree Spirit Project, also representing In Defense of Animals with about 25,000 members in California alone. And you can see me as sort of 50-50 on this. I'm fully in support of MWPA's and the county's really push for all you folks there that represent different parts of the county for the great aggressive push on defensible space and home hardening. Fantastic, yay, 1,000 yays. And keep it up, and let's get more money for that so people kind of get over the don't tell me what to do with my place, or I don't want to cut down this or trim this or deal with it. That's really essential. The other 50%, which I wish I had more than 60 seconds left on this, or 73 seconds, is, and I've spoken with Mark, and I will be speaking with Mark again. He's a good guy, and I appreciate the open dialogue, Mark, but beyond 100 feet-ish, or whatever that is, I'm one of the people that's written in extensive comments. And it's not just some emotional guy who's a tree hugger and animal lover, which I am, but it's just kind of depressing to me to see, and in fact, you're very transparent about basically doing an end run around the Coastal Act. by reverse engineering a plan that says, well, we're going to get a general blanket program because we want to streamline the process, which I would call bypassing a process. Marin is known for its lush woods, people's love of wild nature, and of course, wild animals who live there too. But with wildfire, people get so scared, all of that is pushed aside, and then there's a whole world of euphemisms about, well, we don't suppress wildfires anymore, but in fact we are. We're now like, well, good fire is okay if it's moderate, as opposed to natural wildfires, mixed severity, with some high severity patches, but all of that doesn't matter if you protect the houses. So stay out of the wildlands, stop destroying the understory vegetation of any kind, driving out all the animals, and destroying the wild nature here that people live in Marin for. That's all the time I have for it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate your input. Next.
And it looks like we have a comment from Michael Gollner. Just a moment. I will cue the timer here. Apologies. Okay. Michael Gollner, you may begin speaking when you are ready.
Okay, hello board. It's great to speak with you today. My name is Michael Gollner. I'm a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and I run the Berkeley Fire Research Lab. Mark Brown reached out and asked if I could make some quick comments after reviewing the plan. For those that are aware, we've worked a lot in defensible space, home hardening, as well as other treatment areas that can be done to protect the wildland-urban interface. I would say that what the NWPA is proposing here represents a lot of the best practices. Home hardening and defensible space is critical. We don't want our homes to ignite, and even if we minimize intensity of fires, fires can still get in those areas. However, lowering the intensity of fire in the area surrounding, which means doing fuel treatment and work, is really critical to lowering fire risk. This is both to reduce the exposure to houses. This means it's much more likely that our neighborhoods will survive. It brings the fire down lower so that firefighters have a better chance of actively suppressing the fire and minimizing damage. And it's also important that some of the work is done in active evacuation routes. And so I just want to echo the fact that this sort of mixed, all-encompassing approach is really representing a lot of the best practices that we see in the wildfire field. I could go on for several hours about different research and which shows benefits and how all of this is going, but it is actually really heartening to see a lot of this in action. I would say whether it's home hardening, defensible space, fuel treatments, these are all really hard things, right? So I see the public struggle as we're trying to make changes, but I think that the folks here are working very hard, and all of us, the research community, to try to minimize the amount of work done to have the maximum reduction in risk. And so there's a lot of good practices here, and I just want to echo that it seems like a lot of the things proposed are what we recommend and what's coming up in the literature as we continue our research. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Goldner. Do we have other comments?
It does not appear. Oh, it looks like we have an additional comment. Just a moment. We'll go ahead and get our timer reset. And it looks like we have a comment from Karen Leese. Karen, you may begin speaking when you are ready.
Hi, my name is Corinne Lees, and I just want to say that I agree with Jack Gescheit of Tree Spirit Project. He speaks for me as far as emphasizing home hardening and defensible space and leaving the forests alone. I've heard many references to forest health, and I'm wondering what the criteria is that's being used. I've heard many people say that the forests are sick, they're not healthy, and that I also heard, I saw one on one of your charts that said diseased vegetation. So I'm not sure, or is that language being used to just support the plan and make people think the forests are sick? Just because the forest is messy and has a lot of down branches and rotting trees and vegetation understory, that doesn't mean it's sick. That probably means it's healthy. So I think it's very risky to go into these forests, these beautiful forests in Marin County, and start spraying herbicides and using masticators and chainsaws. That's not how you make a forest healthy. Forest health and wildfire risk are probably actually two very different subjects, and they're being conflated in this plan. And I think that that's a big flaw of the plan. So that's really about all I have to say, and I still have time left. So just leave the forests alone and work with the community on hardening their homes and making their communities resilient. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lees. I appreciate your comments. All of your comments will be incorporated into our record. They've been shown on the screen here, and they will be a part of our record for this meeting. So are there any other public comments?
It does not appear that we have any additional comments in the remote environment, nor do we have any in the room. Thank you.
So seeing no more, we will bring it back to the board after having heard all of the comments. Are there any board comments or suggestions or questions at this point on the PWP, our action item? Then we're ready to, just so that I just want to re-explain what we are doing now is a Public Works overview. It is not an individual project. It is working within the coastal zone jurisdiction. And it is, all individual projects will be specifically named, and you will have opportunities as the public to comment on each and every one of those in a lot of different ways with us, with the Coastal Commission, and with the proponents, just to reiterate this. So the request is for a motion to approve the PWP for the Coastal Commission. I'm sorry, Coastal.
I'll move the adopted resolution approving the Marin PWP as attached to the staff report, noting that we received public comment on the Marin County Forest Health and Fire Prevention Public Works Plan today.
Second. I second.
Sorry, you the one who second first? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't read you. Okay. Thank you so much. So it was moved by Director Radoni and seconded by Director Andrus and Anders. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call for this?
Roll call.
Okay. So I'm sorry, go again. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The motion passes. Thank you so much for the outstanding presentation. Thanks to all the members of the public for their input. And now we move on to the next item, which is committee reports. Item 9, Fire Safe Marin. Chief Tyler, will you please present the committee report?
Greetings, directors. Thank you so much for having me again. Obviously, our report is in your packet. I do want to just draw attention to a couple of improvements that we continue to make to the report that you have an opportunity to see. One is that we heard from the board that they wanted, copies of some of the materials, some of the digital assets, et cetera, directly. And so we have hyperlinked in the highlight section, starting with the August electronic newsletter. Also, the Imagine You Can Protect Marin, that was that piece about what homeowners need to do to take actions and the various things that they can do. We also included a link to the companion piece. This is Marin Wildfire that you had seen in earlier months. And then, of course, a copy of the Fire Smart Yards, which is that visual guide to landscaping, which has been viewed now close to 2,000 times. So those are some improvements. Also, on the activities by zone, we're still working to try and get some kiosks out in West Marin. We have gone out to 3 different locations, and we're working with the different the builders group that's out there to make sure that they'll allow us to have a kiosk in there. And so we're excited to update you on that. I know it didn't occur in August, but I did want to share with you some of the final numbers on Ember Stomp. Let's see here. All right. So this is just a poster that we had of the event, and I want to thank all of you that attended. Personally, I think I saw most of you that were moving your way through from time to time. Many of the fire chiefs, city managers, elected officials, I also saw. So it was really, really a fantastic day. The weather, the interactions, just a complete expansion over previous years, building on the success from previous years. We had over 6,000 attendees, and the way we know that is we have people at the front that are clicking as they're coming through, so we kind of keep that idea. We didn't have any clicking people at the back, but we know also based on the parking lot and the overflow and how it pushed into the back of the event. We also take a look at the food sales from the vendors that were up over 20%. And then speaking with the different vendors or other partners that we had, for example, the Marin Master Gardeners keep track of all of their interactions that they had. They had over 2,000 interactions, which was double of what they had tracked last time. So just a couple of other things. We had 100% participation. I don't want to miss the evacuation drill. Remember, this was the first time we had tried something like this, a countywide evacuation drill that was promoted by the fire chiefs, all the agencies, and law enforcement. We sent out information through social media and other means, both in English and Spanish with pre-registration. We're happy to report that we had over 500 households that came to that. And that means it was more than 1,000 people. And so we're still actually tabulating. Those were just from the electronic ones that we had. Then also 100% participation from agencies. Not every agency tabled, but they all contributed to resources and promotions of the event. We had more than 150 people sign up for the CSAA $1,000 awards. There were 5 $1,000 awards that we're going out, and we're holding a drawing to select those people. They'll receive an assessment by their local agency and then identify what they want to apply the $1,000 to, whether it's home hardening or vegetation reduction within their defensible space. We also had over 82 participating organizations. Total, we had over 80 staff and volunteers. That's basically twice the number of volunteers that we had previously, including from our the promotores. Were trained and came as well. So great representation of those groups that we're representing. We also had art submissions for kids that were K through 12 that could participate. And there was actually over 60 submittals that we received, and we boiled those down to like the top 25, and then we had those judged and awards were given, and the kids got to participate and be proud with their families saw their effort. We had an art project that people could paint a mural, so many people contributed to that mural all together. We had over 20 sponsors that brought in approximately $75,000 to help offset the cost of the event. So that was great news. We had 12 on-air interviews with KCBS live reporting from the event all day. And we put together kind of a brochure around that of people to have through. And then the collaborative art project I mentioned. This way people in the audience can see this a little bit better. But just a terrific day. This was the layout of the event, kind of in a fun way. You can see all of the areas, including at the entrance where we had that evacuation check-in point that was very well identified. And then as you made your way down the path into the event, highlighting the history of Marin's fires so that people could see that. And as you walked kind of down that path, you get to the point where you're confronted with the 5 goals of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and how we intend to address, mitigate, and help become fire adaptive. And it pointed people directly into Marin Wildfire, and you heard both Mark and Ann talk about their experiences there. And then along a pathway that had large visual images of catastrophic wildfires in areas starting back in 1991, which was in the tunnel fire of the Berkeley Hills, in which Fire Safe Marin was formed following that, and then took you through a progression of fires, including fires that we had. Let me see if yeah, this is that evacuation site check-in, and someone mentioned the map earlier with all the colors there. Let me just say, you had asked a specific question about how many outsiders. About 8% of that total, 1,000+ people that I self-identified as going through that evacuation drill. But those images that you saw were just compelling, and so many people were stopping and look at them. They had their children there. They were talking. You could overhear conversations, remembering where they were when these fires occurred, et cetera. And I think it had a really big impact on people as they walked down and then basically delivered them to the solutions, to the issues that they're facing, whether that was the home hardening area, whether that was the live fire demonstrations, the vendors that were there that had displays of fencing, which has been a big concern of a lot of different people, to see it beautifully displayed where they could go up and touch it and look at it and even decide if they wanted to bring in the different contractors and have them replace their existing combustible fences. This is kind of some of the demo areas where people could come up and throw brightly colored pieces that represented embers and throw them so they could see how they land when they hit a fence and where they drop into the combustible vegetation, or the difference of if you try and throw embers across a screened underdeck versus if it was open, or how those embers could drop in between the slots of the deck. So really hands-on, immersive sort of experience rather than just sort of picking up a brochure and kind of strolling along. So great opportunities there. And of course, Dr. Steve Quarles was there to help lead 8 to 10 burning demonstrations that we had. So narrating us through that, including a mulch demonstration, which goes with the report. A lot of people still interested in mulch, as they should be. And then you could just tell by the photographs the high level of number of people and the interactions that they were having. This is just a list of the KCBS folks and all of the people, the agencies, and what they talked about as they narrated throughout the day. Again, the art contest and everyone working together, protect what you love. All of the different partnering agencies that were identified throughout the event. And then here are our sponsors. And then the team that put it all together, Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, all the folks from their staff that worked hard, and then Fire Safe Marin folks that made it happen. So I'm going to stop sharing there. Let's see. In the show. All right. And then, so I have been around to the fire prevention officers group, which represents all the agencies and also the fire chiefs today, and gave them the numbers and the reports. And I've asked for feedback, and I would like feedback from all of you that have attended. If you can let us know what you thought really worked, maybe things that we're missing that we can focus on for next time. We're going to be in discussion about, how and when to bring the event back. And so I need your comments to make it the best that can possibly be. And then one other thing here I wanted to do, if I can. I wanted to, let's see here. I just wanted to show, I know this is really a report about August, but I wanted to just show you that we have the September newsletter that's gone out, and some of the things that Mark Brown talked about earlier. September is when that catastrophic fire occurred, and so we took the opportunity to talk about it in the lead, and we've included kind of taken from the headlines, if you will, the story as it was written in 1923. So you can click on in the electronic newsletter and read the story of the fire, and you should do that. It's really, really interesting from the perspective of the folks back in 1923. I just want to show a couple other things that's sort of new to the newsletter since July, is we've added these kind of fun, thought-provoking cartoons, kind of like the New Yorker has, that have different themes that kind of make you stop and think. This one says, it's them next door about that hedge again. and you can see it taken over there. So anyway, Mark Brown said that he would get the podcast that he did. Well, here you got it already. So it's in your inbox. You can click on it. It's excellent. I listened to it myself. So really, really terrific. And then each month we're going to add additional information about the CWPP for people to understand the different processes. So we're helping with the outreach on that. And you can see each month there will be something new. And so in this case, talking about the weather modeling that was selected to be used in the CWPP. So good explanations there. I'll just click on this so you can see if it opens up. So you can see what it looks like here, and it takes through and provides an better understanding for the weather patterns that were selected. And then at the bottom here, and it talks about also the weather is likely to last longer due to the climate change. So that is a part of the consideration. Really terrific information in there. And if you have questions or follow-up, you can go to cwpp@marinwildfire.org and send those comments and questions. We are building a landing page on Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority that all the materials will go there so that if you want to know more, people can go and get informed, as well as a frequently asked question. So all of that is there. So those are just some of the highlights out of the newsletter that I know you all receive and enjoy. That's the end of my report.
Thank you so much, Chief Tyler. Now back to the board for any comments or questions. Yes, as Director Wave said, good work. We were there, and it was really terrific, especially the interaction. And the event builds on itself. Every year it gets larger. And my personal opinion was there are a lot of people doing a lot of work around their houses, and the best thing is word of mouth. They're telling each other, they're getting grant monies, and they're enthusiastically passing it on. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any public comments on this item?
It was an excellent event and very well done. And I went around to all the things. The wall was very revealing, with all the history of what had taken place in Marin through the years, and very well done.
Yeah, thank you. Team effort.
Any other questions or comments? Good job. Okay, so now the next item, the final item, is requests for items on the agenda, next agenda. Are there any requests from the board for future agenda items? Hearing none, going to the next item, which I apparently don't need a vote for. Thank you this was a wonderful presentation, very thorough and very long. Thank you so much. The meeting is adjourned.